Hello, hello, hello. This is Becoming One with the Big Wide World with Jasmine,
DJ,
and Tashira,
and Curtis.
All right, today our hot topic is success. But before we get into talking about what success means to us, we want to go through a couple questions that helps you get to know everyone around the round table.
And on the phone.
And on the phone. All right. First question to everybody. What in the world is there just too little of?
I would definitely say too little of open-mindedness, because there are so many things out there, so many opportunities that people can take part in, and it's just not enough open-mindedness in my opinion.
What about you, DJ?
So for me, I'm thinking the way that I would frame it as there's not enough people going out and experiencing things. So not enough adventure or experience, different experience. So the way that I'm more or less thinking about it as people are so focused on the task at hand, they lose track of everything else going around them.
They forget to have fun,
A life. Because, yeah, I fell into that aspect dealing with school. So.
What about you, Curtis?
I'm going to say patience. I just feel like there is not enough of that in the world. I feel like a lot of people jump the gun on a lot of things. Patience, all around, whether it's with, family, careers, education. I feel like if a lot more people were patient, it would definitely be more positive things happening in the world.
All right. Well, that's beautiful. Well, I think that the world needs more mentorship. I think that people need to start connecting more with other people and teaching people how to become more available and supportive for other people, or to teach them how to contribute.
Self-develop.
Contribute how they want to participate in life, because people are inspired. They just need somebody or want somebody to help them, light the way and show them that, what you're doing can be good. All right. What is your number one rule for being your most authentic self?
That's just it within itself. Being your authentic self is the number one rule. Not apologizing for who you are. You are literally saying, this is what I am. This is who I am. Take it or leave it. Not doing that in a rude manner, but you are not afraid to show who you are. Just simply being authentic within itself.
Okay.
Yeah. For me, was basically the same thing that you just said. For my perspective is more or less not really caring about what other folks are thinking and what their opinions is. Just being you, whoever it is that you, and you could care less about what the next person says.
Mm.
Just staying positive. I'm a very positive person, so that's one thing that I always gravitate towards. No matter what's going on with me or whoever, my loved ones, stay positive. A lot of people, when they think of me, that's the first thing they say is, you're positive. That makes you stand out, from everyone else. That you just, no matter what, it just doesn't seem like things get to you. But if they knew me, I'd be like, hey, yeah, I have my hard days, but, 9 times out of 10, I just try to, keep that in my mind and in my heart, just stay positive.
Those are all really great questions. I mean, really great answers. Well, I like to basically, apply those rules, but I think the biggest part of that for me is not accepting projections, whether they are good or bad. Just like keeping a sense of self, and no matter what other people are saying, and just like even if somebody says that you're pretty, or it says that you're stupid, or says whatever, like no matter if the comment is good or bad, just remembering like who you are and not getting inflated or not getting deflated based off of what other people were saying about you. So I think that's the biggest rule to accepting your authentic self.
Sounds like everything we just said lines up with it.
Yeah, basically.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What is the greatest piece of advice you've ever received?
I would definitely say that to stop taking advice from people who have never been where you're going. Simply because if you have not been where I'm trying to get to, or if you know nothing about what I'm dealing with, there is no way that you will be able to give helpful advice, because you don't know the feeling of it. You don't know the experience of it. So you will not be able to help with that. So I would definitely say that's number one for me.
For me, is do whatever you truly believe is in your best interest.
That's a good one.
You're the one that's going to have to live out the life. So do what you actually believe is in your best interest. And there's really no other way to put it. That's...
Yeah.
Okay. I think, one thing that sticks out as far as advice is from my dad. He always told me, anything others can do, you can do. Never feel like you're, handicapped, or feel like you can't do anything you set your heart to. If you want to be an athlete, if you want to be a teacher, if you want to be, a professional dancer, whatever the case may be, you can do it if that's what you really want to do, and never forget that. So that's always stuck with me.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, the greatest piece of advice I've ever received, which got me in and out of a lot of places, is if you can't change the people or things around you, change the people or things around you. And I think that that's a very ambiguous statement that can be utilized in various different ways. And it definitely helped me make some really big life choices in the past and future. Oh man, we have some really beautiful personalities right here right now. So now that we have taken some time to get to know everybody, let's get into what everybody thinks success is. As our first question, what is success? How do you measure it? Is there a limit to it? And how do you know when you're successful?
Those are some excellent questions. For me, success would be pushing forward even when you're uncomfortable, because success requires you to get out of your comfort zone, to do what you may not be used to. You have to do what most people will not to be great. And as far as measuring it, it's immeasurable to me. It's beyond measure, because I don't feel that there's a limit to it. Anything that you can do, that you would like to do, if you set your mind to it, you can do that and more. It's all in your mindset, and that's where it begins. And believing you can do it is half the battle. And when you're successful, when you feel good about yourself, when you stop worrying about what people think, when you stop worrying about, what if this doesn't work? What if it does work? So I would put it that way.
All right. Mine's kind of actually lines up with that. So for me, it's being able to handle whatever the heck life throws at you, and not necessarily taking the easy way out, because everyone wants the easy way out, and that's just more or less how I look at it. So if I can take the path less traveled and make it through that, then again, like you say, I feel good with me. As far as it being a limit, it's not really. It depends on the person. If the person decides to say, I want to stop at this level, then there's a limit. If they decide not to stop at whatever level, then it's infinity. Is that the word that I'm looking for? It's not really the word that I'm looking for, but yeah, something like
you
that.
mean infinite, but
I
got
that's
you.
exactly what the heck I'm trying to say.
We got you, don't worry.
So that's what it is for me, is not taking the path less traveled and being able to make it through it and handle whatever the heck life throws at you, because it's going to throw a lot.
Beautiful.
For me, I would say, it's very, basic, but, I believe in it so much. It's just achieving what you set out to do. A lot of times we, have goals, or we want to do this, we want to do that, and, a lot of times people fall short, and just before they reach that, where the success lies, like, it's basically what it is. And, I can't necessarily say there's a way to measure it, but I always feel like, for me, when I felt I accomplished something, or I felt like a sense of success, was the peace and joy it brought me. When everything else around me that's negative didn't matter, I embraced that moment. I embraced that, that feeling. And I would have to say, I would say the fulfillment of it is what really, when when I know I'm successful, that's just, you get that when you wake up and you just feel complete, like you feel like you just, I don't know how to describe it. It's just, it's I feel like it's almost like, an out-of-body experience. Like, you just can't, there's no words to really describe it, but it's just this completeness. You feel like you completed, you fulfilled your purpose, basically. So, yeah, that's basically it.
All right. Well, I basically think that success and how you measure it is basically just accomplishing a goal that you think is worthy and that you value, and that you think that's basically your life purpose. And I think that you measure it by self-satisfaction, because at the end of it, it's not really based off of anything else. It's your goal. It's not your family's goal. It's not, whatever. The only person that actually has to be satisfied and live with this decision and goal is you. And the only person that has to live with the end result of it is basically you. And if anybody else feels any type of way about, you failing your goal, then, that's really their problem. But, but you're the only person that actually has to live with your success or your lack of success. I do not believe that there is any limit for anybody. I believe that you make your limit, and whatever you stop pursuing, whenever you stop dreaming, basically, that's where you end up settling in your success. But I don't think that you have to. I don't think that there is a natural limit to anything. I think that you could do anything whenever you feel like you want to do it. And, again, you're successful when you feel fulfilled within that success, that moment that you're able to enjoy and celebrate what you've done with yourself, for yourself, basically by yourself, just being able to sit in that joy and that accomplishing that goal. All right, guys, what is the moment you decided what success meant to you? Explain what it felt like and what was happening.
I'd say the pivotal moment for me was shortly before I left college, because at that point I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life when I was in my undergrad phase. when I was coming out, maybe a year or so before ending college, I was coming more into what I wanted to do with my own life, not fumbling around anymore. I'm like, okay, I need to make a decision. I need to make it fast. I need to get out of here. I need to grow up, and I need to get a sense of who I am, because I'm not going to be here forever. We can be so stuck in one place for such a while that we forget we have to move forward. So I would definitely say that was a pivotal moment for me. And I feel like that was the beginning of my success, because I tapped into who I was becoming. And it felt like I had a sense of power. It felt like I had a sense of completeness, because the more that I knew about myself, the better I felt, which is basically what was happening. So if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
So in my life, my moment was when I was when I was in Florida. So when I was standing out there with my sister when she was moving out there, I was standing in the mirror, and I was just looking at me and then thinking about what I've been living out through once I've been down there, and it all just felt correct. It just felt right. And that's kind of the moment when I realized this is what the type of atmosphere that I'm looking for, the type of climate that I'm looking for, the culture that I'm looking for. This is what I'm going to go after, even if it's not necessarily in Florida, because that's just the only place that I can kind of think of besides Southern California now. But that's kind of when my brain synapses went off and clicked off, and like, this is who you are. This is all correct. This is just right. Yeah, and that's about it. And that's kind of when I had it several years ago, probably in 2006.
Wow, that's a long time to hold on to a dream.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely. For me, it was sometime after I got out the Navy. Granted, I didn't want to get out the Navy, but, circumstances put me in that position. So I definitely, when I got out, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and it was killing me every day. Like, I couldn't figure it out. And one day I woke up, and, I know I love to dance, dance most of my life, but I also love to help people. And so I kept thinking, and I kept just really thinking about those two things, and I just came up with putting them both together, And so now I'm working towards opening my own dance studio. So now I'm in school now, and I'm in business school now, and I plan to go to music school after this. But it felt like once I figured it out, like everything else just didn't matter. People telling me what I should and shouldn't do, where I should go to school, I should just get a job, don't worry about school, just work, make money. All that stuff didn't matter. I knew what I wanted to do, and I'm doing it now, and I think, it was the most amazing feeling. Like, it's just like a weight lifted off my shoulders. And so now I'm just blessed, and I'm happy. I'm doing what I, set out to do. So,
Wow, that's beautiful. And my moment was 1 year before I was getting out the Navy, because basically in that time I didn't like where I was at. I didn't like the department that I had just gotten into, and I kept asking myself, do I really want to work with these people for another 4 or 5 years, or meet more people similar to them that, and stay here and just like think that this is about to be my life? Do I really want to dedicate, however many more years of my life to this? And I realized that, when I joined the Navy originally, I did not intend to re-enlist. I was going to do my 4 years and then just like carry on about my life, and I felt like I had to honor that commitment, as a lot of people say you should. But it was a long, hard journey to trying to figure out, who I was and what I wanted and how I was going to make all that happen. And it was painful. it was definitely a very painful journey, but I feel like in that I found out so much about myself and so much about the world that I was a part of and how everything is connected, and I'm blessed. Right. And I feel fortunate, and I definitely feel like I can achieve the success that I want. Oh, it's terrifying. What are 3 rules or 3 steps to success?
I would say 3 rules or 3 steps to success would be, 1, to keep God first, because that's how you just get everything in order, and that's how the plan comes in. It comes together, and it's much better than the plan that you devise on your own. Secondly, I would say focus. Don't let anything or anybody sidetrack you. Don't let anything or anybody distract you from what you know this is in your heart and in your mind for you to set out to do. Thirdly, stop trying to please everybody. There's always going to be somebody upset. There's always going to be somebody either happy or they're not happy. There's always going to be critics. There's always going to be people talking regardless. So you might as well just do you, enjoy life, and be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. So, and for me, well, so the thing dealing with what you said first, I suspected that was going to come out, and that's obvious, and that is part of one of mine, but I knew that I was going to say that I want to actually add to it. So the ones that I came up with, and I actually try to live by, is be truthful, honest with yourself, because if you're trying to put on some act or be like somebody else, then it's not you. You're probably not really pleased with yourself. You're just, it's fake. And yeah, so 1 is be truthful, honest with yourself. The second one is be willing to learn, because you can go through all these experiences, you can get all this information, but if you don't actually learn from it, then you're not going anywhere. And then the second part, or third one, is put in some actions, because people talk all day. And just because you say something don't mean it's gonna happen. If you cannot say something and it could still happen. So it's putting in some form of effort. You got to put in some form of action. You actually got to do something. If other folks don't know, who gives a care? But just put the effort and action into it, because otherwise it's definitely not gonna happen.
So much knowledge being dropped.
Well, for me, like, as far as 3 steps goes, the first step I would say is just really determining and figuring out what it is that you want to be successful at. Like, there's none of the other steps will, you'll be able to complete if you're just unsure about what you want to do. So I think that's the first step. Second step, I would say, elude or, get rid of those obstacles that's in your way. Really think about, like, okay, what's stopping me? What can stop me from, achieving this? Whether it's, family, your environment, whatever the case may be, small or big, just do your best to, get rid of those or, minimize them to the best of your abilities. Third, I would say, it's more so towards the end. I know it says 3 steps to success, but like I feel like the last one, help others. Help others achieve success. Those that really want it and really, are looking to you for advice or looking to you for guidance, definitely help them along the way. I feel like once you figure it out, there's no sense in, keeping it to yourself. Even though someone may want to do something different, you still have that story. You still have that, look, this is what I had to do, this is what I needed to do to get here. And, basically just share that with others. So those are my 3 steps. And, yeah.
Good stuff.
Beautiful. Just freaking beautiful. All right. Oof. Well, I ain't got no steps, but I got a couple rules that I like to live by. My first one being, but not in any kind of order. Don't believe someone else has the answer to your success. Everybody always think they might, and even with mentorship, mentorship isn't supposed to give you the answers. It's just supposed to give you a map, basically. But it's so many ways to get to the same place. All right, and I have keep setting goals and making decisions. Success is a unending journey. It never ends, and you got to keep setting goals, and you got to keep making decisions, and keep following through with whatever you set out to do, and do it. And remember that failure is not the opposite of success. It is a product of being on your journey. Those are 3 rules that I like to live by. And now that we have dropped all that knowledge about success, man, I'm touched. Oof. I'm cold, Not sure if that's just wrong, but now that we've shared some of our thoughts about success, I'd like to end up with a couple questions about you guys to see kind of where your head is at. So, on your journey of success, if you could, what would you create or add to the world?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would add to the world. It relates back to my first answer, which saying that we need a more open-mindedness. So that would be the very thing that I would add, to let people know that the corporate American way, or the way that society has set, is not the only way to do things. I mean, college is great, but it's not for everyone. You don't have to go to college to be successful. You don't have to work for somebody else to be successful. There are so many ways to be successful. There are so many ways to do things very wisely, very legally. It's not just the only way. You don't just have to listen to one way to do things. There are so many ways, so many opportunities to do things. So I would say open-mindedness definitely needs to be added for that reason.
All right.
Thanks, Tashara. You kind of just said everything that was going to come out of my mouth.
I'm sorry.
Cool. Yes, everyone, that was pretty much what I was going to say. So what I'm going to say is ever so slightly different, but it's basically the same thing. It's creativity, because it's a bunch of different ways to accomplish goals, whatever the heck you're looking for. There's not one simple way. Yes, school is good, but that's just a tool belt. You don't have to use exactly that. It drives me insane how some people seem to think there's only one way to get something done. No, there's several different options to get something done. And some ways are better than others. And then there's others that fit for different situations. Be open-minded, like you said, and be creative to figure out the best option to get it done. So I feel like that if I could, I would want more creativity, because I obviously can't use the same word that somebody else just used. So that's what I would add.
Alrighty, I'm gonna have would be dance and music studios across the world. You know, and I say that because, you know, so many, like even myself growing up, you know, they have talent or have something that they love to do so much, but they don't have the space or tools to, you know, do what they love. You know, a lot of times they get discouraged or they get turned away because they just don't have it. Like, it's just like, well, I would love to do music, but, you know, I just don't have, there's nothing out here where I'm at to, you know, and a lot of people can't afford college. They can't afford, you know, to go to these schools to do that kind of stuff. So I definitely would open as many as I can, you know, for youth or, you know, even people my age that just want to do what they love and really want to do something with it. So
let loose.
That's what I would have.
All right now. Man, y'all just gave out some really beautiful answers, and I'm just sitting here looking at my answer, and the only thing I could
beautiful too.
Yeah. The only thing I could really say is I would make a beautiful podcast and share it with so many beautiful people, so that way I can touch some of the young minds and souls and bodies of even some old people that might need a little bit of the hard conversations to be said. Because, like, I think that everybody honestly wants to have these conversations about success and becoming and being, you know, a part of where their part is in the world. Just trying to figure it out. But I would definitely contribute a podcast or even a couple conversations outside of a podcast in order to make my contribution to the world, because I think conversation is one of the biggest things that is just too little of. All right. Whew. What lesson took you the longest to learn?
My God. The longest lesson that took me to learn was learn how to set aside time to help yourself. I don't regret being a helpful person. I love being helpful. However, there are a lot of times I forget to stop and do for me. I don't want to always, I have to learn how to stop making myself so available to everybody to where it's like they've got more of my time than I have of my own time. And that can be dangerous because you have to help yourself before you help anyone else. Otherwise, it's just going to be you still at square A while everybody else is moving forward, but those are the people you help, and then you're still stagnant. That's not what you want. They're not gonna help
you like you helping them.
Exactly. So that's, I would say, learning how to help myself, take availability for myself.
All right, so from my world, this is a lesson that I'm still learning. Hasn't been completely learned yet, is not comparing myself to other folks. I have I'm better at it now, but I had this tendency to consistently compare myself to others, and it was always not a very smart idea. I tend to, thoughts will spiral out of control, and I will beat myself down and over trying to compete or whatever to someone else when there's no reason to even be looking at them. It's not, if I was going to be them, then my name would be them. I would have their DNA. This is my life. I just need to figure out a way to really be good at not looking at other people and trying to compare myself to them, because I'm not them. If I was them, then I would be them.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So I have not officially learned that yet. I'm still working on that.
All right.
I would say the lesson that took me the longest to learn is learning to count on myself more than others. And I can say honestly, I just learned that recently, so it's been working well for me. But for the longest, I just I always thought others would be there for me, or I can go to my loved ones and I need this, or can you help me with this? And, you know, thinking and hoping that they would help me just cause, you know, a lot of times it didn't work out that way. And I told myself, hey, if I want to get out of this situation I'm in, or if I want to achieve this, or if I want to have more money, or whatever the case may be, when, you know, only I can give that to myself, you know, a lot better than others can. So, yeah, that took me a long time, and I would say probably in the last 6 months to a year, I've finally figured it out. So,
Wow. Okay. Well, I can say that the lesson that took me longest to learn, and which I am still currently in the mode of learning, because learning never stops, and I am human. I think letting go isn't the same thing as giving up. And I think that that's a big one to me, because it's a lot of people that like to tell you that, oh, you're not doing this anymore, or they like to assume that just because you aren't holding on to something as hard as you used to, or holding on to some kind of idea to the same degree, it means that you've given up on it. And I don't think that that's necessarily the same thing. I think that the less that we allow things to be primary in our lives, the more that we can put ourselves first before things and ideas and situations, and to be able to recognize our humanity over just valuing, you know, material things or goals or whatever. Because you have to remember that you're a person first, and that you have needs and wants and desires, and to be able to meet all of that first before you just be gung-ho on a goal or an obsession or whatever the case may be. So letting go isn't the same thing as giving up. It's definitely important to me. What do you think is the purpose of all humanity?
I would say definitely to live life to the fullest. Not to sound cliche, but that's definitely something that we all should learn how to do, because we're all existing, but we're not all living. There's a big difference. I wasn't just put here to pay bills and die. Like, there's more to life than just what you need to do. There's more to life than just the important stuff. There is room for spontaneity. There is room for adventure. There is room for growth and development. So once we learn how to balance that and package all of that, that factors into humanity as a whole. That's my opinion.
All right. So I guess what I'm about to say might be kind of cliche. It's probably cliche.
Everything's cliche.
I know, right? It's already been said. So
Everything has already been said.
I know. Tell me about it. Do what God tells you to do, and the only way to really do that is for you to be able to find Him. And my way isn't going to be everybody else's way. That's up to the person. So, and if you do that, then that really helps out with what you just said to Cheryl, of living life to the fullest, and then not with kind of no regrets, and actually feeling like you're complete or completed or whatever I'm trying to say. Listen to God, because He has the end goal. He knows what's He knows. He has the full picture. If you listen to Him, then you're pretty much good. Because I don't think He put us on this planet just to pay bills and die.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, man, I don't even want to say much.
Go ahead, Curtis. You got it.
Dang, I'm like, oh, man, shoot. I'm looking at what I wrote. I'm like, brush that one off.
Again, don't be comparing yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
There is no wrong answer.
It's definitely not.
I would say to coexist, I guess. I feel like, that's something that, hasn't been done, like, since the beginning. Like, I feel like, there's so many people, we're all here on this earth, and, I would just say that the purpose would be to just learn and work towards coexisting, learning to, what we can learn from each other, what we can do to, help each other as individuals. Is, something like that.
Makes sense.
I don't know. Y'all was so good. I was like, oh, man, that's one I'm gonna have to really think about for a while. I don't even think I have the full answer to that one yet, but that's the start of my answer is coexist. So yeah,
I like that one.
I'm lying.
I do like it because I got what you were saying. I loved it though because we do need to learn more from each other.
Yeah.
So I agree.
Oh, okay.
See, now you don't feel so bad, do you? Y'all a mess.
All right. Well, I think that everything everybody said is just absolutely beautiful, and actually it really touches on how I feel about what the purpose of humanity is. In my own opinion, I ultimately think that the purpose of everybody being on earth is to continue the idea of oneness, or to really accept oneness, to accept yourself as an individual that is actually a part of something much, much bigger than what you think or know or even can see. I think that we are all a part of some big, gigantic
Picture.
But what I want to say is I want to say machine, but I don't think it's like a robot or anything. It's more like some big ultimate being, and I think that the purpose of living is to get it right, get our function right, to come back and keep learning from our mistakes until we actually start being that big toe that we're supposed to be, or being that appendage, and just making sure that we play our part in what we're supposed to be accomplishing, and make sure we're living up to our potential and achieving what we think is success, to make this ultimate being or whatever it is to work as it was meant to be.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, that definitely did not last as long as I thought it would. But
no, because we skipped one. We skipped this last one, so we can still take that one on.
All right. Well, if it's any questions anybody might want to put out into the atmosphere, have at it.
We come this far, why not?
Yeah. So in that case, let's go ahead and finish it with this last one that we ended up skipping.
We did.
What is the most difficult decision you've had?
What is the most difficult decision you had to make thus far?
Yeah.
Ooh, on this journey, I would say after leaving college the first time as an undergrad, I would say deciding whether to go back to college for my master's degree. I waited 3 years to go back, first of all. Secondly, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back because I was torn between, do I really need any more schooling, or should I just go ahead and work right now? Because the longer you wait, the more likely you probably wouldn't want to go back. So, and I also felt like going back to college was a placeholder, a filler to something else. So I felt like if I wasn't doing regularly working, or if I wasn't doing X, Y, and Z, I could have been doing schooling. That way I could still be doing something with my life until something more fulfilling comes along. That way I'm not just stagnant. So I feel like that was the most difficult decision thus far.
All right.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
In my case, it also goes with schooling. So it's changing a plan that what I was going for after I put in 6 years of effort and money and time and giving up, and changing that plan and deciding to go with something completely different and going back to what I originally was going to go to school for in the first place. So I was planning on going to school for become a radiology technologist, and I did all that time. I did all the schooling for it. I paid all the money. It took 6 years to get to the get to the orientation part. And after going through all the orientation, I ended up walking up to that director and telling them that I'm going to go a different route. This is not for me. So to be able to be real with myself and realize what I was going to go end up doing was not what I really wanted to do. And that's part of that might have had outside influence, but I'd rather have gotten that, been able to come up with that then than come up with it later and then trying to start completely over when I could go ahead and make the smartest decision at that time. So for me is after putting in that time and effort and then deciding it's not the correct way to go.
The most difficult decision for me was deciding to join the Navy. At the time, my sister got really sick, and me being the oldest, like, I'm always protecting and looking out for my brothers and sisters. So when the opportunity for me to join the Navy, I was excited. I was, all for it, But the day it was time for me to leave, I saw my sister there, and she was really, really sick. She couldn't even hug me or look at me. I was telling her goodbye. It was just, that was hard because I had to sit there for a minute like, do I really want to do this? I don't want to go off to the Navy, to boot camp, whatever, and find out she passed away or something. That would have, I don't think I would be able to live with myself by doing that. And so, but, I prayed on it, talked to my mom about it, She told me the best thing, your sister wants you to do is join the Navy. So I went ahead and did it, and I don't regret it now. I was able, once I graduated from boot camp and A school, I flew back home, and I was able to see my sister. She was okay. Unfortunately, she passed a month after that, but just me being able to see her after I had completed boot camp, I accomplished what I said I was going to do. Really, made me okay with my decision, made me, thankful that I went ahead and did it. Because I don't know where I would be had I not joined the Navy. Because, it put me in the position I am now. So, yeah, I think that was the most difficult for me just because I didn't know which way to go. That was actually hard, the hardest decision I ever had to make. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. All y'all answers make my answers seem pretty petty.
Yeah, ain't nothing petty about your answers.
You're trying to sound like me.
No, seriously. My hardest decision was just me having to come back home. Post-Navy, I guess I should add, coming back home after being in San Diego in the Navy. That was hard. If I had brakes, I would have put them on. But it was hard because I knew that the atmosphere and just like the entirety of just the move, it was just going to be different and just not necessarily what I wanted, but exactly what I needed, though luckily I have been able to make the decision to not stay and thankfully I've been able to put myself in such a situation to where I can, make that move available. But it was still a really hard choice to come here and just to fulfill all those goals that I had when I told myself that I had to be here. So, and to meet such, great people and to be able to have such great conversations while I was here, dreading it, but still here, accepting all the privileges I get to be honored with.
That's a word. It is a word. If it wasn't a word before, it's a word now.
Yeah, but that was hard. Still hard, but it's a journey. It's fun.
So.
So does anybody have any extra questions that they want to put out into the atmosphere, or just want to generally talk about when it comes to success or becoming who you want to be and joining the big wide world and finding your part in it?
Not that I can really think of. I just know this was a really good podcast. I love hearing things from different points of views. Like, I like sitting down having roundtable conversations like this. This is my cup of tea. I can do this.
I should have made tea.
That would have been good. I mean, but what about him? What about Curtis? How you supposed to get tea?
Well, he could have made his own tea. I'll send you some tea next time.
This was good, though. This was good.
Yeah.
I agree.
I don't have any questions as far as... Yeah, I don't have any questions at all. I'm still caught up on some of y'all answers. I'm like... trying to write these down and to remember.
You had some good stuff too, Curtis.
Mm-hmm.
I know, but y'all came with it though. Y'all was, especially you was out the gate like, whoa. I'm like, I'm too much. I think for me, it's like the hardest thing for me is just I think too much when it comes to like life in general or like certain questions or like just toss a word out there and I'll overthink it. Like, yeah, I know what it means, but deep down, like it could mean this. Like I go way to the left with it, and yeah, so I'm just trying to tone that down. It's good sometimes, but not all the time. So working on that.
I got you. I can understand that one. Because I'm guilty, definitely, from time to time, where I can look at stuff from so many point of views. I'll be like, wait a minute, or maybe it might have meant this. Or you sure it was this? It could have been this. I do that a lot.
Yeah, I'm the same way in that case. I definitely overthink things every now and then, but...
You know what? That one gives me a question. For some of the particularly young minds out here in the world that may be desiring some enlightenment or encouragement or insightfulness, what do you think was something that helped you get over that hump, get past what everybody else was saying and to grow into yourself? What piece of advice can you give somebody to help them grow within themselves?
The one takeaway I would say is whatever decision you make, be prepared to either reap the benefits of it or suffer the consequences from it. Because as you make the decision, you're going to be the one affected by the decisions that you make. So whatever choices you make, this is your life, your decision, your time, especially coming into adulthood when you really have to put on your big girl panties or your big boy drawers. You really got to come with it, because adulting, 18 plus, you have the rest of your life to be an adult, and there is no turning back from there.
Oh man.
So you have to come with it.
Yeah. Mine's is basically the same thing that you just said again. But I'm going to add to it and say grab as much information as possible, so this way you can make a informed decision on whatever choices that you're going to make. So if you're going to go off and do whatever, you can kind of see what your consequences is going to end up being. And when I say consequences, that's benefits or actual consequences. It's just an effect, I think that's the word, an effect based off your decision. So if you decide you want to go out there and buy, a Porsche 911, knowing that it's a $100,000 car, and that's all that you got, do you really think it's, when you spend that kind of money, are you going to be satisfied with your purchase? And one way to really know that is to talk to people that maybe have Porsche 911s, or to do the research on the Porsche 911s. You probably don't want a Porsche 911. You probably want a Chevy Cobalt, and that would be okay. So take in as much information as possible, even if it's coming from someone that you don't like, or it's coming from something that you don't necessarily like. Bring it in, because if you don't at least listen to it, then you may actually miss out on some crucial information.
That's a biggie.
I did it again. No, I think I would tell them, when it comes to decisions, you're not going to get it right the first time. Not always the first time. There's going to be times where I made a really good decision, but there's going to be times where you're even thinking you're making a good decision and it may not turn out that way. Don't let that, get you down. Don't dwell on it. Just, keep pushing forward. Like, no one's perfect. Just try 10 times harder the next time, or, do it better. Actually evaluate and think about the choices and decisions you make. That's another, I'll say that's one of the best ways to learn from them is, evaluate what you did wrong or what may have not worked out and apply it to something else, in the future. Because, there's always going to be decisions you need to make from the time, you're able to the time you die. There's always going to be decisions and choices you need to make in life. So just keep pushing forward,
Wow. Okay. I feel like the biggest thing that I would want somebody young to realize is that cliches are real. I know sometimes that we get so absorbed and we say, we get desensitized to all the cliches out in the world, but they are cliche for a reason. And even though it's like repetitive to hear them over and over again, and it's just other people learning it over and over again. That's why they're cliches. But cliches are real. You just have to rewrite them in ways that you understand it. Just because you hear it, when you hear it, you're learning from somebody else's experience. But you have to rewrite it into your own words to where it makes sense to you. You are going to learn the same lesson that everybody else has already learned. But sometimes you just got to let your fingers burn and rephrase it in a way that makes you understand it way better. But just understand that, it's going to happen. And like everything that your parents and everything that your teachers and friends or, anybody who's already gone through any kind of experience and probably said the same thing that they said on TV, it's probably been said over and over again because it's real. And you probably don't believe it, but you will. One day somebody's going to think that what you're saying is cliche, and you got to let them know that cliches are real, and
they're still true.
They're true, and everybody's just going to have to let their fingers burn however they need to. But just accept that lesson the first time.
Learn.
Learn from these cliches.
Right.
questions, statements?
You've had some really good questions. Like, this is really stuff to think about. These are some really good questions.
Yeah. I just think that these are worthy conversations that people just aren't having enough of. I'm sitting here alone basically thinking about this stuff all day long, especially about, when I'm at work, which is very lonely. But but like I feel like when I'm at work, I'm around all these, older people, and like I feel like I wish that they would reach out more, because like they are like big fountains of knowledge, I would like to think. But I have been wrong before in my life. But it's just like I felt like when I first got there, a year ago, that they should be sharing more knowledge, reaching out, because the only thing that they do say repetitively is that I'm just so young. And it's just like, well, if you feel like I'm young, why don't you teach me something? Or why don't you contribute to my life? Or, help build a bridge instead of keeping that gap between us. And it kind of hurts to know that they would rather just sit there in your cubicles cackling amongst all their older co-workers instead of including me. But that's okay, because, I'm over it.
Cackling. That's the term that you use.
Oh, gosh.
Cackling. Literally, chickens.
Dirt. Oh, gosh.
I'm just saying. That was a funny word. I like it.
Point is, I just wish that more people would have these conversations with the people that need to have them. Because I think that everybody has these kind of things on their mind, and it's just nobody to have these conversations with. Yeah. Or at least we like to think so.
Nobody really wants to talk in depth about anything. We just like to scratch the surface and think we did something, and it's like, no,
it's
like much deeper than that.
Yeah, it's like everybody's afraid of like the truth. But it's like,
and that's the sad part. Some people are strange. What the heck is a strange? Afraid is the word that I'm flipping trying to say. Some people are afraid of the truth. And I really don't know why, because you can work with the truth, can't really work with a lie and manipulation.
I don't know, America seems to be making it work.
Girl, don't even.
But yeah, I mean, some people are afraid of the truth. So.
Oh yeah.
But I do think the conversations need to be made, because they will help. It will help us grow as people, as a person, as a nation, as a planet. But you gotta dig into it to really get those answers.
As another question, and like I don't think that anybody has any absolute answer, but why do you think that these conversations are so hard for families or friends or co-workers or people on the street to have? Like, why are these conversations so hard when people are thinking about them all the time? Maybe.
I think that was... Oh, go ahead, Curtis.
No, I was going to say, like, I think a lot of people are just closed-minded. Like, you can't get but so far into a conversation, like this type of conversation, without, someone being offended or someone taking what you're saying and, like, being upset about it. Like, it's just... I think for these type of conversations to happen, you need, an open-mindedness. Like, you need to really think from a lot of different perspectives. You need to see from a lot of different perspectives. Not necessarily saying that you have to agree with everything that's said, but definitely, process everything that's been said. Like, okay, I can see how for you that makes sense. Or, like, you don't even have to say that. But I think, like, especially nowadays, like, a lot of people just don't see. They just don't see it, with that open-mindedness. Like, I have a struggle with family having these type of conversations, and those, like, I feel like are the most, like, just closed minded, especially the older. Like, my dad be like, boy, no, that ain't, no. I be like, Dad, but you gotta see it. Like, I'm just saying, like, nah, this is what it is.
Yeah.
This is how it been. And that's it. I'm just like, it's frustrating. But, I mean, that's what I think. I think it's just the lack of being open-minded.
Well, I couldn't agree more.
I definitely see where you're coming from, because I feel like what contributes to the closed-mindedness is the generation gaps that we have. We're so set in our ways. We have the traditionals who are so used to doing things their way. You have a lot of them who may or may not look down on millennials for the type of things and decisions that we do. We're not getting married at 20. You know, we have more jobs and opportunities out here. We have more ways we have more advanced methods of doing things. And then you have rent going up. No, we're not going to have $1,500 rent being married at 20 with $10 an hour. That's not going to work these days. This day, the dog, the cat, the mom, the dad, the kids got to work. We can't, this ain't 1922 where we can have the husband working, that's it. Times are changing, ideas are changing, opportunities are changing. Therefore, these conversations, even though the basis of it remains the same, the questions may alter from time to time because different ways of success have opened up. And I feel like that is what really needs to be taken into consideration. And I also feel like people are afraid to be successful because of the work it's going to take, because of the time, because of the effort, everything we are not used to. Once again, we're so busy wanting that comfort zone in our hammock when that can be retirement zone. You know, once the work is done, then I can chill. But for now, I got to get the ball rolling. But those are just my thoughts.
Oh, all right now. Drop the mic.
All right.
Passing it along.
Yeah, for what it's closed-mindedness is what I coming up with also. People so stuck into their own world and mind and can't think of anything different. Not necessarily anything different, but open-minded. They can't see your point of view. They so stuck in theirs. It's like, no, that's wrong. No, there's several different ways of getting at something. Just because you came up with a thought don't mean yours is right. Is there really even a right or wrong answer? Some cases, yes, there's right and wrong, but there's a huge gray area, and people are just so stuck in themselves and can't see other points of views. So.
Wow, yeah. You know, I don't think anybody could ever disagree with any of you all. But just like listening to all of y'all talk, like, I definitely heard a couple other things in there. Like, when you were talking about basically the generation gap between everything and how the millennials are trying to do everything different and how they're not really accepting the other generations, you know, methods of how they want to go about life. I think that another barrier between that is that dismissiveness, that they feel like that, you know, hey, we already did this and you can't just like completely write us off. You're like, we already been there, we already done that. But the truth is that things are different now. And it's like, but they're reading it as a ideal of superiority or not needing them or thinking that they're just dated. So I think that that's probably a big barrier in it too. And like, we probably wouldn't really think about it because like they raised us and like we wouldn't purposely be dismissive, but it's like we have to acknowledge the moments when we can't listen to, you know, things that aren't working. But it's really hard to tell your grandma that don't work. Because
it's like, I'm older than you, I've been here.
Oh, so they do not let it go.
I get slapped so quick. What you say?
Yeah. And another thing, I think that some people can't see the oneness in everything that we do. Like, they can't see how we get how you all played a part and how everything is today. Everything today is what it is, and let us do our part so that way we can take care of you. Just accept your part in how everything is running. Just stop resisting and accept that, you know, you're older, and just enjoy that the children it's their time to take care of you. And even though they probably aren't doing, the most ideal job, it's your time. It's your time to be one of those old people, just like when old people were old when you were young, It's kind of one of those things where people have to accept where they are in life, and they are kind of just not.
Yeah.
And I guess another thing that I kind of heard when you all were talking was people don't have the ability to agree to disagree.
Oh, that's a big one.
It really is. Like, I was having a conversation with one of my coworkers. I think she's really ignorant, but most people are. So we were talking about the shootings down there in Florida. I was listening to a podcast from Trevor Noah, and he was sitting there making light fun of it, and she just kept taking it to this really grim place. And it's of course we know that this is a very grim event, but honestly, this could honestly happen to anybody, especially if they do not put any policies in place. Granted, people are going to do whatever they're going to do, but it's just she just had the most indifferent, still-minded idea that she doesn't have any part in it. And it's not about having a part in it, and it's not about making your voice the loudest voice. It's about accepting the fact that you're a human, and this could happen. You just had a baby. One day she's going to be going to high school with these crazy ass kids that are sitting here eating Tide Pods and bringing guns to school, and you will have to you might have to deal with this one day.
This could happen anywhere.
Exactly. And it's just if you were one of these people that did get some kind of contribution, what would you think would be a solution? It's not about being the person who bottom lines the piece of paper. It's about knowing that you have a voice in society, and just being whatever. Anyway,
people don't care until it affects them directly,
right?
And it's but that's just it. It does affect you to a certain extent. It's
does.
what happens when somebody is shooting up your child's school. This can happen literally up the street. This can happen on your block.
Yeah.
Nowhere is safe.
Couple of minutes.
Exactly.
But the point is that she couldn't agree to disagree in the fact that she kind of is playing a part by being indifferent. She felt like that was just her thing, and it was I'm not trying to get anybody to go my way by no means. I'm just one of those people where I don't care what your decision is, but realize that even being quiet is a decision,
right? And
not saying something about that is how victims continuously get hurt, because people sit there and they act like saying nothing is not having a part in it.
Neutrality won't work forever.
Everybody can't be Switzerland, okay?
Exactly.
Or Canada.
Right.
Especially in America. But I think that people have a really bad case of not being able to agree to disagree, and how having an opinion about things it still makes a difference.
Yeah. Everybody wants freedom of speech until it's somebody else's time to talk.
Oh man, yeah.
Are they saying something that they don't agree with?
Exactly.
Yeah, everybody got freedom of speech, but I don't agree with what you're saying, so I need you to stop talking.
But look who we have as president.
It don't work like that.
Hey, that's what your America voted for.
That's what America voted for.
This is your America. This is your youth. They went out and they went to the polls. There was more youth than ever going to the polls and voting for your president.
Uninformed
but it's still your president. You have to accept this guy.
And it makes you reevaluate the Electoral College as well.
Well, that was jacked up from the beginning.
Which is true. But everybody knows American politics is really just, a game.
Yeah.
It is. It's a game that's played by the filthy rich.
Yeah. It's about the puppets. Who's willing to be a puppet?
Yeah, that's what the politicians are, and the billionaires are the ones paying them. I'll give you $40 million if you convince these group of people to vote for me. And then I'll make sure I put this whatever. It's such a game. I don't even get into that right now.
Yeah. It's become some type of sick trivia pop quiz show that the media just frames so that everybody can just have a whiff of. It's like there are more than two political parties, but yet only Democrat and Republican are the ones displayed.
True.
There's so much more information out there than meets the eye. That's what happens when the media frames what they want us to see versus what actually goes on behind the scenes.
And they part of the ones that's playing the game.
Exactly.
Right.
Example, Fox News. Oh my gosh.
It's such a game.
But I think the fact that the world is waking up to small facts like this is going to make a really big difference in the future. I feel like kids or people now are more interested in knowing the truth and asking why and looking past the filters, even though they keep using them, to
right.
to get to what's real in the world. A movie that really pops out to me sometimes, in my life is what is that movie called?
What's the plot of it?
Yeah.
Gosh, it's on here.
Oh yeah, we got the internet at our fingertips. Why are we using that right now? It's Google. You probably talk to Google. Google. What is that movie that I'm thinking of?
Oh,
Where's Alexa? Alexa.
something about a fish. Shit.
The Big Fish.
Big Fish.
That's the one,
In the movie Big Fish, where the guy was a journalist and his dad was a really good storyteller, and he told him really good stories throughout his entire childhood. But growing up, he really just wanted to know how things actually happened. And his dad never told him how things actually happened because he wanted his son to have all these beautiful stories about his life and, his dad. And just like that's how his dad wanted to be remembered and to contribute. He wanted that mystical vibe to be what people thought of him and whatever, but the kid just really wanted to know how things actually happened and like how all these people got into his life for real.
He's gonna find out sooner or later anyway.
Right.
And I think that kids nowadays, they really want to know the truth behind all these mystical stories about how all this stuff is happening or how we got to this point in life where we stopped asking why and why we don't have any answers for them. Because I think that the generation before us stopped asking why, and they were just doing things. they were just doing things. They were living. They fucked up credit. They fucked up housing. They fucked up life. And it's so many things that was messed up all by this prior generation because they all stopped asking why.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But they want to blame it on the millennials, and that's okay. Sorry, I just wanted to.
Oh, that's fine.
I mean, you have to let it out.
Yeah,
it has to be
out.
said.
You let out.
Facts have to be said. I mean, it's the
Your
good.
hand needs to get smacked like 4 different times. And going off the questions and thing, that's something that I just thought about because I don't know why I forgot, is something that the world needs to do is to ask why. Just ask the question why, and hopefully who's ever giving the answer is actually being truthful. But if you don't ask why, let's use what you were just talking about. Oh, our parents was doing something a certain way for all their lives. We learned it. Why did you do it that way? And that whole time was just because they had a bigger family. Mm-hmm. So they cooked all this food because they had a bigger family. You don't have to cook all this food. So now you done picked it up, you learned it, but if you didn't ask why, now you cooking all this food and it's going to waste, spending that extra money. If you would have just asked, why did you do that? And they could have said, oh, it's just because it's like 14 of us.
Yeah.
So just ask the question. Why? Know when to ask that question also.
Yeah.
Don't start asking questions at the wrong time, because, yeah, you're going to find out how people are going to react. But know when to ask it and ask it. So.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, we had a beautiful conversation here, and that was a lot of really good information coming out about a lot of topics, hot and cold. So,
Or lukewarm.
Yeah, we have the whole spectrum.
I wouldn't say we have the whole spectrum, but I would say we cast a pretty big net out here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that anybody who's listening would find value in any perspective that we put out here, and
I can agree with
they'd
that.
definitely have something that they would find value in. So
I completely agree. Your hand needs like 3 more smacks though.
why does my hand need smacks?
Oh, because the 4 words that came out your mouth.
We're happy words. So we are going to end this nice conversation with with a nice hearty goodbye from everybody, and good night.
Good night, world.
See you later, world.
Good night, world.
Nice meeting you guys.
Nice meeting you too, Curtis.
You too.
Well, y'all kept me on my toes.
Likewise.
We do what we can.